Grow this kid up a little bit more. Let's send him through puberty, make him grow up. Chapter 8, we're talking about adolescence. Maybe. There we go. Markers of adolescence, rites of passage may include religious blessings, separation from the family, severe tests of strength and endurance, marking the body in some way, or acts of magic. It all begins with puberty, the process that leads to sexual maturity or fertility. This is a bar mitzvah, a Jewish bar mitzvah. This is graduating from middle school, it looks like. They are graduates, it says right there, I am a graduate. This is an African fertility dance. This is not a Canalda, this is Apache. It's called a Na'es. I'm not pronouncing that correctly, and I apologize. It's very similar to the Canalda. Drinking beer out of a beer bong. Don't we? Okay. This is First Communion. Quinceañera. It's a Latina. Latina becomes a woman at age 15. That's why they refer to it as quinceañera. It's a celebration of being 15. These are pictures from her quinceañera. There she is again. Here she is taking her first drink of alcohol. That's her cousin, I believe. Yeah, it's her cousin. Not her boyfriend. There we go. 15 years old. She's a woman. Canalda, the day ritual activities, first day, comb the individual's hair, they get dressed. This may be completely different from what you have observed, but this is what I found on the internet. Comb the hair, they get dressed in traditional clothes. They mold the Canalda cake, I believe. They grind the corn. I don't know what the mold is. Put pot of wheat near the outdoor cooking fire after the molding. I guess that's what was molded. The second day they grind the corn, they spread wheat in the sun to dry after digging the pit. They soak the corn husks while working on the batter. The third day they grind corn again, they dig the pit, they build the fire. They make blue meal mush. They put a batter in the pit and bless it. They cover the pit. They gather soapweed root and white clay for mourning during the singing. The third day they run to east while 4 songs are being sung. 1 12-word song, unless the ceremony is the first Canalda, when this song is omitted. They make an offer to Mother Earth. They prepare white clay basket during the racing songs. They lift children after the molding. The girl goes back into the hogan after returning the goods that have been given to her. They retie the girl's hair as a woman. Opportunities, and like I said, this may be completely different from anything that you have observed. This is, like I said, this is what I found on the internet. So this is what people think the Canalda is all about. People who read the internet. Opportunities and risks of adolescence, opportunities for growth. Physically they grow, cognitively and socially they gain competence. They gain autonomy, they gain self-esteem, and of course they gain intimacy. Risk of adolescence, difficult handling so many changes at once, and it may lead to help. They may need help in overcoming dangers along the way. The current risks that we have seen: heavy drinking, drug abuse, of course, sexual activity, and gang activity. It looks like these guys are in, I don't know if they're in the same gang or not. It's pretty nice shoes, though. I have a pair just like that. How puberty begins, there's a sharp increase in production of sex hormones, which leads to rapid growth in height and weight. Changes in body proportions and form, the attainment of sexual maturity. Estrogen, estradiol production increases 8 times in females, and androgen, testosterone, increases 20 times in males, and that may be why both of them are acting goofy. There's a 7-year range for the onset of puberty in both boys and girls. The process typically takes about 4 years for both sexes and begins about 2 or 3 years earlier in girls than in boys. That is in the Western world. It's not the same way all over the place, everywhere. Timing sequence, signs of maturation. Average age for boys is about 12 years, anywhere between 9 and 16 years. The average age for girls is 9 years. With the range being between age 6 and age 14. The signs of going through puberty, adolescent growth spurt, the development of pubic hair seems to be extremely important, deeper voice, and muscular growth. The primary sexual characteristics, these are the primary sex organs. The testes are there. These are what you were born with. These are the primary sexual characteristics. Males have a testes, penis, scrotum, seminal vesicles, and prostate gland. These are all intact when the individual is born. For females, they have the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, the uterus, and the vagina is all there. That's the primary sexual characteristic. The secondary sexual characteristics for males: growth of testicles, growth of pubic hair, the chest becomes larger, the growth of armpit hair, muscle growth, voice becomes deeper. For females, the breasts enlarge, there's an enlargement of the uterus and vagina, narrowing of shoulders, widening of hips, high-pitched voice, and growth of pubic hair. So there you go. Male hair pattern is different than the female hair pattern, both in the pubic region and throughout the rest of the body. The male grows hair on his face, and the females tend not to do that. And once again, here we go. Usual sequence of physiological changes in adolescence: growth of breasts anytime between the 6th and 13th year. Growth of pubic hair anytime between the 6th and the 14th year. Body growth anywhere between the 9.5 year point and the 14.5 year point. First period any time between the 10th and the 16.5 year point. Underarm hair about 2 years after the appearance of pubic hair, as interesting as that is. Increased output of oil and sweat producing about the same time as appearance of underarm hair producing glands. And this can cause acne. For males, growth of the testes and scrotal sac anytime between the 10th and the 13.5 year point. They grow pubic hair somewhere between the 12th and the 16th year. The body growth, body starts to grow at 10.5 to 16. My grandson just turned 11. Oh no, he doesn't turn 11 until Friday, but he's right there. He's right here. He's right here. He's right here. Growth of penis and prostate gland and the seminal vesicles sometime between the 11th and the 14.5 year mark. Change in voice about the same time as growth of the penis. First ejaculation of semen about 1 year after beginning of growth of penis. Facial and underarm hair about 2 years after appearance of pubic hair. Increased output of oil, sweat producing glands. And males tend to have more oil and sweat than females do. This occurs about the same time as the appearance of underarm hair. They start smelling different. And they start needing to use deodorant. Males can reproduce as soon as their sperm appears. Well, probably they can't. The human body practices all the necessary functions before the function is actually needed. Babies will move inside the womb. The newborn will exercise its limbs. Pre-adolescent boys who have not been sexualized will experience the same reflexive activity with erections while they are asleep. This will happen. Those of you who have had sons know that sometimes you take their diaper off and they have an erection, and sometimes they urinate right straight up. Don't worry, it's just urine. This activity will continue all their lives as their brain checklist, as a brain checklist to make sure that all the equipment is still working. The oldest man will have an erection during his sleep. It's just the brain's way of making sure all of his body parts are still functioning. At about age 13, the male adolescent may have actual ejaculations of semen during his nightly erections. These are known as nocturnal emissions or wet dreams and is an involuntary reflexive act. The boy's first ejaculation is called spermarchy, for sperm. It may be several years before the sperm he produces are actually produced in large enough numbers and in correct form to actually impregnate someone. The sign of maturity for girls is menstruation when the uterus prepares itself for implantation by the fertilized ova. The first menstruation is called menarche and occurs sometime around the 12th or 13th year. However, menarches can occur from anywhere between the ages of 10 and 17. Research shows that girls from affectionate families actually show a more delayed menarche. Girls from single mother homes and ones without affection in their families tended to reach menarche earlier. While maturation and sexuality have been taboo subjects in many areas of the world for a long time, doctors and other people who are aware of such things have noticed that menarche is happening earlier and earlier than it ever has before, a phenomenon known as secular trend. Doctors and researchers think we are seeing a secular trend because better health due to better nutrition, lower rates of communicable diseases due to immunizations, greater access to health care. Children raised in a home with a non-biological parent have easier onset puberty, have earlier onset puberty, synthetic hormones in the water supply possibly, and stressful family environments also could be causing the secular trend. Kikuyu adolescents, the boys show puberty before the females. The Kikuyu, of course, are a Aboriginal tribe in Africa. Chinese adolescents, the girls develop pubic hair before their breast buds. This is the opposite of what happens in the Western pattern, where the breast buds grow and then pubic hair is formed later. African American adolescents, girls develop breast buds and pubic hair earlier than white girls do. Hormonal changes in puberty. Girls and boys follow very different hormonal paths in this life stage. As you can see, very, very different. The testosterone level, it's 20 times higher for boys. This is where they started. This is where they ended up. Girls, it's a more gradual thing. Why testosterone? Testosterone provides the sex drive for both males and females. So it's necessary to have testosterone. But both boys and girls have estradiol as well. And as you can see, for young women, it's much higher and it gets much stronger. Boys, not so much. Timing of the physical changes of puberty, and there they are, growth spurt, pubic hair, okay, anyway, pubic hair, breast development, growth spurt, change in voice, menarche, sperm production, underarm hair, skin, oil, and sweat, which causes acne. Used to be a problem, I don't know. I don't know if it's as much of a problem now as it has been in the past. Early maturation in males leads to more poised, relaxed, good-natured individuals, popular with peers, likely to be leaders, less impulsive than late matures. So early maturation in boys is a good thing. Late maturation in males leads to feeling more inadequate, self-conscious, rejected, and dominated. They're more dependent, aggressive, insecure, or depressed. They have more conflict with parents and more trouble in school. They have poorer social and coping skills and think less of themselves than the early maturing males. Early maturation in females leads to being less sociable, being less expressive, being less poised, more introverted and shy. They are more vulnerable to psychological distress and remain so at least through the mid-teens. They are more negative about menarche than later maturing girls. They're more likely to become sexually active with older boys, and older boys will not leave them alone. Late maturing females tend to be happier than the earlier maturing peers. They seem to enjoy protection of childhood into adolescence. They are more likely to do well and stay in school. They become sexually active later. They are more likely to go to college. Physical activity is good for everybody. It improves their strength and endurance. It helps build healthy bones and muscles. It helps control weight. It reduces anxiety and stress. It increases self-confidence. Sleep needs: adolescents or pre-adolescents who have irregular sleep schedules or chronically sleep deprived and sleepy in the daytime. They show symptoms of depression and do poorly in school. So put them to bed, make them go to bed. Nutrition and eating disorders. Obesity is the most common eating disorder in the United States due to too little physical activity and poor eating habits. By age 15, more than half the girls in 16 countries are dieting or think they should be dieting. Anorexia nervosa, a distorted body image, leads to eating very little or starving oneself. Symptoms include inability to maintain body weight, fear of weight gain, lack of menstruation, distorted body image. Some researchers have found a connection between anorexic daughters and competitive mothers. This is the girl when she was anorexic. This is her recovery. She has actually recovered. You can see the same face in this, maybe. This is before and this is after, thank goodness. This is not before and this is after. Bulimia nervosa, they tend to maintain normal body weight and recognize abnormal eating patterns. They go on huge eating binges within a short time, usually 2 hours or less, and then try to undo the high caloric intake by self-inducing vomiting, strict dieting, or fasting, engaging in excessively vigorous exercise, taking laxatives, enemas, or diuretics to purge the body of all the excessive weight they just took in. Eating disorders are more common in cultures that emphasize slimness. Treatment options, hospitalization, medication, psychotherapy. Effectiveness: about 1/3 of individuals treated for anorexia remain sick. 1/2 of individuals treated for bulimia will relapse, continuing problems as individuals dealing with these disorders age. And one of the reasons is because this has become a coping technique that they have developed, and now they can't get out of that cycle. Use and abuse of drugs. Substance abuse is the harmful use of alcohol or other drugs, a poorly adapted behavior pattern lasting more than 1 month. Substance dependence, addiction, may be physiological or psychological or both, likely will continue into adulthood. So a pattern that you develop as a adolescent, you will potentially maintain that throughout your life. While substance use is rare before adolescence, it is common by the end of adolescence. By graduation rates, rates of marijuana use by seniors is higher than cigarettes. Substance use is highest in Native American and lowest in African American and Asian Americans. While teenage substance use has gone down in comparison to previous generations, it is still much higher than it is comfortable for society. And when the abuse is in your family, it becomes a serious tragedy. It is during adolescence that many teenagers are introduced to their first step on a possible road to adult addiction. The gateway drugs are drugs that in and of themselves are not seriously addictive, but drugs that set a precedent of need that can only be fulfilled with more of the gateway drugs or stronger, more addictive drugs. And it starts out with usually with nicotine, with cigarettes, then alcohol, and then marijuana, leading to crystal meth. That's the usual pattern. They start smoking, then they start drinking, and then they start using pot. And then from there, it's Katie bar the door. It's really hard to slow them down. Romantic relationships increase over time. Asian cultures later than other groups. Romance is less formal than previous years. Relationships and sexuality are viewed differently due to culture. Permissive cultures tolerate sexuality. Semi-restrictive cultures have prohibitions. Restrictive cultures have strong prohibitions. 47.8% of U.S. high school students have had sexual intercourse. This worries some researchers because adolescents are not emotionally mature enough to handle the aftermath of sexual activity. Only about 2/3 of adolescents protect themselves by using a condom. Teenage pregnancy is always a possibility. Worldwide, individuals below the age of 25 account for 45% of all the HIV infections. 11% of all births in the world are to teenage mothers. While individuals between the age of 15 and 24 only represent 25% of the population, they represent 50% of all sexually transmitted diseases. This is a child who has had a baby. This is the youngest person ever to have had a child. Her name is Medina. She's from Peru. She was less than 5 years old when she got pregnant. This is her baby. Her baby grew up healthy, wealthy, and died at age 40. She's still alive, strangely enough. Lena Medina, that's her name, Lena Medina. And that's her when she was pregnant at age 5. Gave birth at 5 years and 7 months. The youngest individual to ever have a baby. She never said who the father was, but it was her father. Her father was arrested, and but she would not testify against him. So there you go. Teenage pregnancy rates in developed countries, as you can see, everybody's lower than the United States. Why are the rates so high in the United States? That's a good question. The APA has recently defined the changing sexual mores in the United States as sexualization, a social phenomenon where people are valued for their sexual appeal and behavior and nothing else. This is especially a current problem with females as we are bombarded by SI swimsuit models and Victoria's Secret angels in their underwear. It isn't hard to see how girls might base their self-worth on identifying as sexual beings. And I didn't get this in the SI swimsuit issue this year. I do get SI Sports Illustrated, but I didn't get the swimsuit issue. So it had a picture of an old person on it, on the cover. Oh, it was Martha Stewart was the cover lady. Piaget's stage of formal operations usually develops around age 11. Individuals develop the capacity for abstract thought, leading to a new, more flexible way to manipulate information. They can use symbols, they can understand metaphor and allegory, they can imagine possibilities, and can form and test hypotheses. Formal operations give the individual the ability to perform abstract thought, such as historical time, understanding that now isn't always, extraterrestrial space, algebra and calculus, allowing symbols to represent symbols, think in terms of what might be, not just what is. They can think in the context of idealism. Piaget's formal operation stage of cognitive development allows the individual to form hypotheses and develop means to test the hypothesis through deductive reasoning. Other developmental psychologists, including the author, have estimated that between one-third and one-half of late adolescents and adults do not develop or do not use abstract thought. Though adolescents may look like adults, most adolescents, especially males, do not yet have a mature prefrontal lobe. Studies looking at the activity of the brain found that while adults tended to process emergency information in the prefrontal lobe, where reasonable thought takes place, adolescents processed the information through the amygdala, where emotional arousal and instinctual thought takes place. This may account for increased impulsive, risky behavior, especially in males, and accounts for driving, drug use, and sexual activity. And here is a, wait a minute, there we go.
We're going to make 30 a mandatory retirement age. And we're going to set up rehabilitation camps, mercy centers in every state of the union.
This is a movie from 1968.
Citizens will report to them after 5 years, at the age of 35. And there, in groovy surroundings, we're going to psych them all out on LSD, babies. That way, they're not going to hurt you, and they're not going to hurt me. And babies, they're not even going to hurt themselves anymore. They won't draft us. We'll draft them. And some of them are really going to dig it. And that's going to be the real mother-loving gas. There's going to be cats who want to split from taxes, diners club, crazy birds, crazy wives, and crazy husbands. Millions, true, but millions are gonna go willingly. Just tell them they don't owe nobody nothing. And baby, what a wrap-up. Suffer unto me, little old lady. The best campaign dinners are no campaign dinners. Contribute, contribute, contribute to yourself. The best campaign dinners are no campaign dinners. Contribute, contribute, contribute to yourself.
Miss Plato, hey, Miss Plato, baby, your husband is very happy in the can. Your husband...
That's enough. Okay. That was a movie made in 1968. There was a lot of revolution going on all over the United States, and all over the world, actually. Riots in Paris and Berlin, all over the place. Um, Vietnam War was taking place. Cold War was hot and heavy. Anyway, so kids taking over the politics of the world, that was the idea. And feeding everybody LSD. And that's how they actually took over the government. They put LSD in the water supply of Washington, D.C. Wild in the Streets. If I were you, I would watch the movie. It's pretty bad. Elkind, immature aspects of adolescence thought manifests itself in at least 6 characteristic ways. These are, according to Elkind, these are the way that adolescents think. Either idealism versus criticalness. They are convinced that they know better than adults how to run the world. And that's, of course, what Wild in the Streets was all about. Argumentativeness. They often become argumentative as they marshal facts and logic to build a case. Indecisiveness. Adolescents can keep many alternatives in mind at the same time, yet they lack effective strategies for choosing among them. Apparent hypocrisy. Teens do not recognize the difference between expressing an ideal and making the sacrifices necessary to live up to that ideal. Self-consciousness. Adolescents often assume that everyone else is thinking about the same thing that they're thinking about. Themselves, of course. That's the most important thing, and that's one of the problems with social media, is the fact that everybody seems to be so self-absorbed. And this is known as imaginary audience. So it's been around for a while. Specialness and invulnerability. Adolescents think they're special and that their experience is unique and that they are not subject to the rules that govern the rest of the world. And this is known as personal fable. So this has been around for a while before, and Wild in the Streets was made. Kohlberg's levels and strategy and stages, contrary to socialization theory, which attributes moral behavior to early upbringing and internalization of societal standards, the cognitive developmental approach holds that people gradually develop their own moral code as they reach higher and higher levels of thinking. And that's Kohlberg right there. Strangely enough, committed suicide at age 50. So here's how he developed his levels of morality. He used this story, and he gave people this story, and he asked them what they would do. In Europe, a woman was near death from a special kind of cancer. There was one drug that the doctors thought might save her. It was a form of radium that a druggist in the same town had recently discovered. The drug was expensive to make, but the druggist was charging 10 times what the drug cost him to make. He paid $200 for the radium and charged $2,000 for a small dose of the drug. The sick woman's husband, Heinz, went to everyone he knew to borrow the money, but he could only get together about $1,000, which is half of what it cost. He told the druggist that his wife was dying and asked him to sell it cheaper or let him pay later. But the druggist said, "No, I discovered the drug and I'm going to make money from it." So Heinz got desperate and broke into the man's store to steal the drug for his wife. Should the husband have done that? That is the story. So these are the levels of these are the moral reasoning levels that Kohlberg came up with. The pre-conventional morality: people act under external controls, obeying rules to avoid punishment or get rewards. And he discovered that children between the ages of 4 and 10 had level 1 pre-conventional morality. In stage 1, orientation toward punishment and obedience, he can steal the drug because it is really only worth $200. He shouldn't steal it, it's a crime, and that's stage 1. Stage 2, conforming to the rules because of self-interest. It is all right to steal because he wants to save his wife's life. or he shouldn't steal because it is all right to make a profit. That's stage 2 of pre-conventional morality. Level 2, conventional morality. People are concerned about being good, pleasing others, and maintaining the social order. This is how people think after age 10. In stage 3, they maintain mutual relations, approval of others, following the golden rule. A good husband should steal the drug. He shouldn't steal. If his wife dies, it won't be his fault. As long as it's not his fault, it's okay if she dies. Stage 4, developing a social concern and conscience. He should steal it, otherwise his wife's death is his fault. It is always wrong to steal despite the reason. Stage 3, post-conventional morality, and this is one that most people don't ever make. Level 2 is about where almost everybody is. But there is a level 3, at least he came up with a level 3. Post-conventional morality, recognizing conflicts between moral standards and make their own judgments on the basis of principles of right, fairness, and justice. Stage 5, morality of contract, of individual rights, and of democratically accepted law. Taking the drug may not be right, but it is justified. Extreme circumstances do not justify breaking the law. And then stage 6 is the highest level of moral reasoning, morality of universal ethical principles. Heinz is morally right to steal. He must respect the sanctity of life, and that is the life of his wife. And the other is Heinz should act in accordance with all lives affected. Evaluating Kohlberg's theory, instead of viewing morality solely as attaining control over self-gratifying impulses, the investigators now look at how children make moral judgments based on their growing understanding of the social world. Neither Kohlberg nor Piaget considered parents important in moral development. Both psychologists grew up in a time where social control was stronger than individual or familial control. Other researchers have discovered that when parents speak to and listen to their children about their morality, children tend to advance through the stages of moral development faster. Morality may be in the eye of the beholder. Kohlberg may do little but reflect Western morality and assume it is universal. Buddhist monks in India actually scored lower on Kohlberg's dilemma than lay people. Some feel that Kohlberg's stage 5 and 6 are possible only for individuals following a specific type of philosophical reflection. Right and wrong has different meanings in other cultures than it does in the Western world. Okay, so this is we're gonna discuss some morality issues. Should the death penalty be intact? Should we have the death penalty? 66% of the people that they asked said it should be, and 27% said no. Is divorce okay? 65% felt that divorce is morally acceptable. 26% did not think that divorce was morally acceptable. Medical research using stem cells obtained from human embryos, 64% felt that stem cell research was morally acceptable. 30% felt that stem cell research was morally wrong. Gambling? How about gambling? You guys own a casino? What do you think? 63% felt that it was morally wrong to gamble. 32% felt that it was morally acceptable to gamble. Suicide. What about suicide? Is that okay? Cloning humans. Oh, I don't have any statistics for suicide or for cloning humans. Cloning humans, 11% thinks that it's acceptable to clone humans. 86% think it's unacceptable to clone humans. Polygamy, when one husband has more than one wife at the same time. 8% think polygamy is acceptable. 90% think it's unacceptable. Married men and women having an affair. This was Petraeus. He was a 4-star general in Afghanistan. He was in charge of all that. He had an affair with this lady right here. She was a She was a reporter, and he was giving her inside information. So that was kind of a strange deal. He eventually became the head of the CIA, and he's retired now, but at that point, he was having an affair. Anyway, 6% think affairs are acceptable, 91% think it's unacceptable. Strangely enough, I'm reading a book about this right now. So the woman's having an affair with a married man. So we'll see how it ends up. Medical testing on animals. Canada just outlawed the testing of cosmetics on animals. 59% think it's acceptable to do research on animals. 37% thinks it's unacceptable. Sex between an unmarried man and an unmarried woman, premarital sex, or just sex. 59% think it's acceptable. 38% think it's unacceptable. As children grow into adolescence, their problem-solving skills continue to improve. Adolescents develop the ability to carefully consider a problem using whatever steps and in whatever order necessary, a process known as task analysis. After determining the process of problem solving, the individual will encode the process. The problem-solving process and encoding the information is part of the dialectical reasoning. As children age, their families become less and less important to them, and their peers and friends become more important. Influence shifts from family to friends. In adolescence, this shift becomes more profound as peers begin taking up more and more of their time. Since masses of people are unwieldy, adolescents will form friendship groups that will become very important to the high school-aged individual. Adolescents who have similar desires and interests will tend to interact with one another on a frequent basis, forming a crowd. And here are some crowds: the punk, the goth crowd, the scene crowd, the gamer crowd, the hipster crowd, the nerd crowd, the indie crowd, and I'm not sure what she is. Anyway, jocks, populars, nerds, grunges, goths, thugs, brains. These are all different crowds that you see in high school. Prep crowd. Okay. Normally, crowds are so large with people falling in and out so frequently that it is impossible to know everyone in the group. The small group of intimates that someone knows in a crowd is known as their clique. And this, of course, is Sailor Moon. I've actually never seen or read anything about Sailor Moon. I keep finding pictures of people dressed up like Sailor Moon. High school is no picnic anywhere. This is in Japan, and they have a hierarchy in Japan as well. The adolescents do. These are the cool girls, as you can see. The top are the jocks, the bad kids, the b-boys, the dumb sluts, the musicians, the players, the bullies, the drunken party people, the semi-dropout bikers, and the skaters. This is in Japan. In the middle, these girls would be on top, as you can obviously see. And most of them have blonde hair, because Japanese do not have naturally blonde hair. They've all dyed their hair. Way to go. In the middle, the norm ones, the wannabes, the better-looking nerds, the slackers, the goths, the artists, the mature ones who don't give a cuss about cliques, and the bottom group in Japan, the nerds, the ugly ones, the dorks, the targets, the outcasts, the floaters, the libs, if not good at sociability, and the grubbies. These are the ones on the bottom. Can you imagine living in Japan? Aggression and bullying. Children who seek dominance and control may be especially sensitive to slights, provocations, or other threats to their status. Instrumental aggressors view force and coercion as effective ways to get what they want. Studies agree that children seeing televised violence act more aggressively. Erickson sees this time as identity versus identity confusion. Teenagers' efforts to make sense of the self is not a kind of maturational malaise. It is part of a healthy, vital process that builds on the achievements of earlier stages, trust, autonomy, initiative, and industry. It lays the groundwork for coping with the crises of adult life. And of course, Waldo finally finds himself. Three major issues of identity: the choice of occupation that you're going to be trying to get into, the values to believe in and live by, and a satisfying sexual identity. And this is a guy dressed up as a woman. Is he transgender? Is she transgender? Well, anyway, are they transgender? That is a question. Or are they just a transvestite? Identity versus identity confusion, cliquishness, and intolerance of differences, both hallmarks of adolescent social scene, are defenses against identity confusion. Individuals need a stable identity before reaching intimacy, and this may explain prolonged cohabitation and less frequent marriages, because they're trying to figure out who they are. Marcia saw the struggle for individuation to establish one's own identity outside one's parents as represented by four types of identity status: identity achievement, where the crisis leads to commitment; identity foreclosure, where the individual has commitment but has never been in crisis; identity moratorium, where the individual is in crisis but has no commitment yet; identity diffusion is where the individual has no commitment nor crisis. And of course, I went to college right out of high school. I was only 17 years old. But at that point in time, this was in 1967. At that point in time, I can tell you that we saw all of these: identity achievement, identity foreclosure, identity moratorium, and identity diffusion in the freshman class. By the time we had graduated, by the time we were seniors, we had developed an identity. And part of my identity at that time was, since I had a child and I had another one on the way, I was in identity achievement. I had had a crisis, trying to convince myself who I was, and it led to a commitment. And then I joined the military right out of college. So I can remember seeing all of these. I can remember people as freshmen, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, trying to determine who they were going to be, whether they were going to be. It was really kind of interesting. The most interesting part was the individuals who had successfully navigated through high school, and now they wanted the same impetus. They wanted, so they wore their high school letter jackets, and of course that was verboten in college. You didn't wear your high school letter jacket. That's something you put it away and just left at home. So they were trying to make that transition between being the high school hero and the college person. You know, how in the world do you make this transition? This is the person I was when I was in high school. I was perfectly happy with it, and I can't be that person anymore because I'm not a high school person. A lot of the individuals became high school teachers. They went right back to high school after 4 years. They got their teaching license and went back. But of course, this is 1967. So by 1971, there were a lot of individuals that were being drafted into the military. If you didn't have a 2S deferment, then that's where you went. You went right into the military. It's really kind of interesting, fascinating stuff. But we saw all of these when I was in college. Ethnic factors in identity formation. For some adolescents, ethnicity may be central to their identity formation. Many minority youth feel conflicts between values stressed at home and those dominant in the wider society. Adolescence is a time when sexual orientation becomes obvious to the individual. Historically, people kept their sexuality or sexual orientation secret, but now they are more likely to come out. Homophobia can make coming out traumatic. Parental rejection can be a concern. However, acceptance by peers may be increasing. So you're more likely to be accepted by the people of your age group than by the older individuals who have different mores. Electronic games are especially popular among boys. 94% of middle school students play, 1/3 of the boys play every day, 11% of girls play every day. Favorite games involve violence. They could be related to anxiety and depression. Use may be related to feelings of power, fame, and dealing with stress. The kids may be using the games to achieve a cathartic effect on negative feelings that they have because of problems they have at home, problems they have at school. So they use it to dissipate those negative feelings. The great majority of crimes are committed by young people between the ages of 12 and 25. Crime rates peak about 18, then they will start declining. This crime trend has been true for over 150 years. It is thought that this is true for two reasons: increased peer importance and independence from the parents. There you go. This is called a ducktail. That's what they used to call that hair style. Two types of delinquency: adolescents, limited delinquents who start getting into trouble as adolescents and stop with adulthood, and life course, persistent delinquents who start from birth and continue into adulthood. Types of depression: depressed mood, enduring period of sadness, no other related symptoms of depression, and major depressive disorder. Clinical diagnosis: specific symptoms, depressed mood, appetite disturbance, sleeping disturbance, and fatigue. Causes of depressed mood: conflicts, disappointments, poor performance in school. Girls are at higher risk than boys. Two types of treatment: antidepressant medications and cognitive behavior therapy. Resilience is good outcomes in spite of threats to adaptation and development. Protective factors are high intelligence, effective parenting, adult mentor, high self-regulation, ethnic identity for minorities, and religiosity. These are all ways to protect yourself from depression or from any problems. And that is the end of the chapter. So we're going to, oops, it's low on memory. No, it's not. Okay, fine. Stop. There we go. Okay.